collar clicks shut around your neck with the finality of a grave being sealed. It is not heavy in weight, but it drags upon your soul like an anchor. One blink ago, you were a prisoner in a cell so filthy the walls sweated despair. Now, you are something less than a soldier and more than a corpse. You are a penal legionnaire. The overseer does not look at you with recognition. His gaze slides over you as one might glance at refuse on the ground. To him, you are not a name, not even a crime. You are a weapon. A disposable piece of flesh with just enough heartbeat left to throw into the grinder. The collar around your throat has a simple promise built into its core. Obedience is survival. Disobedience is obliteration. Around you shuffle hundreds, maybe thousands of others. The stench of fear is thicker than the recycled air. It rolls off the chained mass of men and women like smoke from a battlefield pyre. Some cry, some whisper prayers. Some stare with hollow eyes, already walking in spirit among the dead. The air tastes of rust and copper, like blood long dried upon a blade. Somewhere deeper in the transport hold, a man coughs until the sound rattles like breaking glass. And then it stops. Silence consumes him. This is the beginning of your service. This is the last mercy you will ever know. The Imperium calls it redemption. They speak of service as a chance to wash away sins in blood and fire. But the truth, the forbidden truth whispered by those who have watched whole legions disappear, is far darker. This is not redemption. This is erasure. You have been erased from the rolls of humanity, cut from the Emperor's flock, and thrown into a furnace that has no end. The Penal Legions are not an army. They are a graveyard that marches, and you, shackled by steel and lies, are one more tombstone. But that is only the first truth. What comes next is worse. The transports carry you to war zones that sane commanders dare not enter. You are deployed as the tip of the spear, hurled headlong into the gunfire of enemies who do not waste their finest munitions upon you. To the foe, you are nothing. To the Imperium, you are less than nothing. Your overseers watch with fingers poised over detonators, ready to paint the ground with your blood should you falter, flee, or even hesitate. Imagine it, the screaming roar of lasfire above your head, the choking black smoke of promethium filling your lungs. Ahead of you lies a trench, riddled with barbed wire and broken bodies. Behind you waits the overseer, his thumb caressing the trigger that rests upon your life. To your left, a man runs. His collar flashes red for 1 second, and then his head and chest erupt in flame. His body crumples, half vaporized, half burning meat. His crime? The instinct to live. And yet you continue forward, because you must. The Penal Legion soldier does not march for honor, nor for glory. You march because the Emperor's galaxy is merciless, and your collar hungers. Your every step is shadowed by fear of the next click, the next detonation, the next overseer's glance that may end your existence. The war zone is chaos, but within that chaos lies an order more suffocating than chains. Expendability. You are expended in waves, like ammunition. Squads of penal conscripts are thrown into minefields to clear the way for real soldiers. Dozens are forced to march across open kill zones to draw the enemy's fire, their bodies shredding into rags so that the guardsmen behind them may advance 1 meter more. You are a statistic, a calculation, a number written in blood. Your overseer marks you not by name, but by tally. This is not war. It is slaughter. And you are the sacrifice. But the slaughter is not the worst of it. The worst is the silence that follows. When a penal legionnaire dies, the record is erased. No gravestone, no memorial, no mourning. Even the administratum files are sealed and burned. The crime, the service, the death, all swallowed into a void. The man who once prayed in his cell, the woman who once wept for her child, the youth who never knew freedom, gone as though they had never been. And yet, still you march, because there is no choice. The days blur into nights, and the nights stretch into eternities. You sleep upon broken ground, your collar pressing into your skin like a second spine. You wake to the sound of executions, of overseers silencing whispers of revolt with the press of a button. You eat rations that taste of ash and metal. You drink water blackened by mud and blood. You learn not to speak, not to look your fellow soldier in the eye, for he may be ash before the dawn. Hope is forbidden here. Hope is a luxury denied to the condemned. Instead, there is only endurance. Each heartbeat becomes a rebellion, each breath a crime against inevitability. And in that endurance, you learn the second truth of the Penal Legions. You are not soldiers. You are warnings. You are paraded into battle to remind the guard what fate awaits desertion, cowardice, or failure. Your burning collars scream a lesson into their bones. Obey or burn as they do. Fight or vanish like them. Your agony is propaganda. Your screams are the Emperor's sermon. But even this is not the end. The Imperium always finds a way to make the horror deeper, the silence heavier, the truth more unbearable. Because the third truth is this: the Penal Legions are not created to win wars. They are created to waste you. Billions are erased each century through this system. Entire prison worlds are emptied into collars and guns, their populations consumed in wars they never chose. Some crimes were great. Some crimes were trivial. Some were not crimes at all, only accusations lost in the tide of bureaucracy. But all are swallowed by the same machine. You are that machine's fuel. Its fire burns with your fear, your suffering, your silence, and it never, ever stops. But worse is still to come. For beyond the battlefield lies the final cruelty. Even should you survive a dozen campaigns, even should you emerge scarred and broken, yet still alive, the Imperium rarely grants redemption. The Overseer's promise of freedom is a chain of its own, always held before you, never released. You march toward an illusion and die before you reach it. And if by some miracle the collar is removed, you do not return as you once were. You return hollow. You return as a ghost walking among the living. The world does not welcome you back. The Imperium has already forgotten your face. The collar may be gone, but the silence remains. And silence is the only mercy. The days of slaughter blur together, stitched by screams and silence. You lose count of the campaigns, the worlds, the enemies. Orcs on one planet, heretics on the next, tyrannid swarms on the one after. It makes no difference. The enemy is always the same: inevitability. The Overseer shouts, and you move. The collar blinks, and you obey. Death is not an if, but a when. Each step, each shot, each heartbeat is already borrowed. The truth seeps into your bones. You are not fighting for the Imperium. You are fighting for another second of breath before the collar claims you. You see it in the eyes of the others. The hollow stare, of those who stopped counting days. The trembling hands of those who can no longer clean the blood from their las gun because they do not see the point. Some whisper prayers to the Emperor, their voices ragged with desperation. Others curse his name, spitting blood into the mud, daring the overseer to end them. But no matter the prayer or curse, the silence always answers. And then there are the children. Yes, children. Some penal legions are fed not only by prisons, but by debts and quotas. A boy of 10 winters accused of stealing bread. A girl whose family could not pay their tithe. A youth who spoke too loudly against a noble. Shackled and collared, they march alongside killers and deserters. Indistinguishable from the guilty, the Imperium does not tear. Guilt is irrelevant. The collar does not ask questions. It only waits. Tears carving rivers through the dirt on his face. He lived another day, but not the day after. His death was not marked. No one spoke his name. Even his body was left where it fell, another shape in the mud. By dawn, the carrion birds had claimed him, and the Penal Legion marched on, as though he had never existed. This is the second truth you learn. In the Penal Legions, you are already dead. The collar is your gravestone, the battlefield your coffin. The Imperium does not see you as living. You are corpses that walk, waiting to fall. But worse comes when the war quiets. The fighting ends, and the silence grows. The guardsmen cheer, the banners rise, the generals boast of victory. Yet for the Penal Legion, there is no celebration, no rations of amasec, no commendations. You are herded back into cages, collars glowing faintly in the dark. The smell of rust, oil, and blood saturates the air. The silence is absolute, broken only by the sound of chains clinking as you shift in restless sleep. Sleep is not peace. Sleep is a prison within a prison. You dream of freedom, only to wake with the collar digging into your skin. You dream of family, only to remember that they will never know what became of you. You dream of death, only to open your eyes and find you must march again. And so the mind begins to unravel. Men whisper to shadows, begging them for comfort. Women clutch at collars as though they could tear them free, their nails bloody stumps by dawn. Some laugh, shrill and broken, until overseers silence them with a button press. Others grow silent, eyes staring into eternity, souls already gone, though their bodies still march. You begin to wonder which fate is worse, to die screaming in battle, or to linger, hollow, forgotten, and erased in silence. But even this despair is not the final truth. The Penal Legions suffer something greater, something deeper. For beyond the physical torment, beyond the psychological ruin, lies the third truth: spiritual abandonment. The Emperor does not see you. The priests claim that service is penance, that your deaths are offerings to his eternal throne. But you feel it in your marrow. You know it in the silence that follows your prayers. The Emperor's gaze does not fall upon the Penal Legions. You are too far beneath his light, too forgotten, too erased. The collars you wear are not only chains of obedience. They are proof that the Imperium has abandoned you. Proof that you have been stripped of humanity, of faith, of worth. You are not sons or daughters of the Emperor. You are shadows cast by a flame that no longer burns for you. And the cruelest part? You begin to believe it. When the shells fall, when the lasfire screams, when your comrade burns into ash beside you, you do not pray for survival. You do not pray for redemption. You pray for silence, for the collar's click, for an end to the march, for the mercy of oblivion. But worse is still to come. For silence is not the end. Silence is only the beginning. They tell you there is redemption. The priests whisper it, their voices thick with incense and rot. The overseers bark it, using the word like a chain to pull you forward. Even the generals speak it, their faces lit by hollow smiles as they promise freedom to those who survive 1,000 battles. But the Legion knows better. You see it in the eyes of the veterans, those few who have marched through a dozen campaigns, their collars scarred and blackened from years of servitude. They do not speak of redemption. They do not dream of freedom. They march because there is nothing else left. They march because to stop is to die. The word redemption is not a promise. It is a lie. Every penal legionnaire is told the same story. Serve faithfully. Bleed for the Emperor. Survive your penance, and you will be free. But freedom is never given. It is always postponed. Another mission, another war, another world to burn. The tally is endless. The leash never loosens. And those who question it, they do not live long. There was a man once. He was older, scarred, a survivor of more battles than you could count. He had marched through deserts of glass, oceans of blood, forests where the trees screamed. He had killed for the Imperium, bled for the Imperium, buried comrades until his arms gave out. When he demanded his freedom, the overseer laughed, and then pressed the button. The collar's red light flared, and his head became nothing more than a mist of blood and bone. The laughter of the overseer echoed long after the man's body fell, and the Legion learned its lesson. Redemption is not for you, yet still you march, because the lie is all you have. If you let it go, if you admit that freedom is an illusion, then despair becomes absolute. You hold on to the word, even knowing it is empty, because to abandon it is to accept you are already dead. And the overseers know this. They wield hope like a weapon sharper than any blade. Earn your freedom, they say, and the Legion obeys. They rush forward into fire, into teeth, into claws. They bleed and they die, chasing a freedom that never comes. But worse than the lie is the betrayal. Not betrayal by the overseers, for their cruelty is expected. Not betrayal by the generals, for their promises are empty from the beginning. The true betrayal is by the Imperium itself, the same Imperium that preaches loyalty, faith, and sacrifice. The same Imperium that demands you give everything for the Emperor's light. The same Imperium that tells the common citizen that all souls matter in his gaze. But in the Penal Legions, you see the truth. You are not a citizen. You are not a servant. You are not even a soldier. You are disposable flesh, meat for the grinder, shadows to be erased. Your existence is betrayal. Because you believed once. You believed the words of the priests, the banners, the hymns. You believed the Emperor watched you, cared for you, guided your hand in battle. You believed sacrifice meant something. And then the collar clicked shut, and belief was torn from you, like skin from bone. That is the third truth of the Penal Legions. Betrayal is not an act. Betrayal is a way of life. You watch comrades steal rations from each other. You watch friends betray friends for a single moment of mercy from an overseer. You see men tear at one another's throats for scraps of armor, for broken weapons, for the chance to live a few seconds longer. And you cannot even condemn them, because you know you would do the same. Betrayal becomes survival. Loyalty becomes death. The Imperium knows this. It engineers it. The collars, the starvation, the endless wars, all designed to strip you of humanity, to turn you into something less than a beast, to erase your name, your faith, your hope, until nothing is left but obedience and fear. But even obedience is not enough. For in the Penal Legions, death is not just inevitable, it is orchestrated. The Legion is not sent to win wars, it is sent to die in them, to bleed in the first wave, to absorb the first fire, to clear the way for soldiers who matter. And when you fall, no one remembers, no one writes your name, no one carves your deeds into stone. You vanish into mud, into ash, into silence. That is the fourth truth. The Penal Legion does not fight for the Emperor. It fights for erasure. You are a sacrifice, not to faith, but to forgetfulness. You die not to honor him, but to ensure others never see your face again. And yet, there is still worse to come, because even in death, the Penal Legion is not free. Death should be an ending. For soldiers of the Guard, it is often hailed as honor. For nobles, it is cushioned by monuments and songs. For priests, it is a passage into his light. Even for the lowliest worker in the hive, death can be a reprieve from endless toil. But for the Penal Legion, death is something else entirely. It is spectacle. When you fall on the battlefield, it is not enough to die. You must die in such a way that others see, that others learn, that others fear. Your death is not your own. It is a warning. The overseers arrange it. The collars ensure it. The legionnaires who falter, who stumble, who hesitate, are executed where all can watch. The collars detonate. Heads burst like broken fruit. Bodies collapse into the mud. The message is clear. Hesitation is heresy, and heresy dies screaming. And then the war continues. But the battlefield is only one kind of death. There is another, colder kind. The kind that comes when the fighting is over, when the world is won, when the banners are raised, when the generals leave the stage. That is when the forgotten are gathered, those too wounded to march, too broken to fight, too hollow to continue. The Penal Legion has no Medicae, no surgeons, no mercy. The wounded are not treated. They are discarded. You have seen it. Soldiers crawling, begging for aid, their collars blinking weakly as their blood pours into the dirt. Overseers do not help them. They press the button. Red light. Silence. One less burden to carry. And then the bodies are burned, shoveled into pits, their ashes scattered into the wind. No names, no prayers, no remembrance. But even in death, you are not free, because your body is still property. The Mechanicus claims it, the flesh stripped, the bone measured, the remnants taken to feed the endless forges. Some become servitors, their husks hollowed out and remade into machines of obedience. Their chains are replaced with wires, their voices erased by static, their memories bled out until nothing remains but function. Imagine it. dying on a battlefield, only to awaken again, chained inside a shell of steel, your collar replaced with a cogitator, your screams replaced by silence. No freedom, no rest, only centuries of endless labor until your flesh rots away. And still the machine drags your corpse forward. Others are not even given that fate. Their remains are recycled, rendered into corpse starch, the bread of the Imperium. Flesh and bone boiled down until they become rations for the same soldiers who laughed as you fell. Your body feeds the machine of war, even after your soul has fled. This is the final cruelty. In the Penal Legion, there is no freedom in life, and there is no freedom in death. The priests will say otherwise. They will claim your sacrifice buys penance, that your death redeems your soul, that your ashes rise as incense to the golden throne. You know the truth. You feel it in the silence that follows your prayers. You see it in the eyes of the dead around you. You hear it in the laughter of the overseers when another collar blinks red. The Emperor does not speak for you. Your death is not remembered. It is not honored. It is erased. And still you march. Still you fight. Still you die. Because what else is left? The Legion exists in a cycle. Life, death, and the shadow beyond death. Flesh, ash, and servitude eternal. There is no ending. Only continuation, only repetition. And so the final hope of every Penal Legionnaire is not victory, not redemption, not even remembrance. It is oblivion. The dream that perhaps, after the collars flash, after the blood has dried, after the body is burned and the ashes scattered, there might finally be silence. True silence. But you know better. Because even silence in the Imperium has chains. You would think the collar is the cruelest chain. That the overseers with their buttons and their laughter hold the final power over your life. But there is another chain. A chain that no overseer forged. It is the chain of the warp. The Imperium does not forget the Penal Legion. Every soldier carries it with them, the taint, the stink of despair, the psychic echo of endless futility. And in the warp, despair is a beacon. It shines brighter than faith, brighter than fire, brighter than blood. You have felt it. The nights when sleep never comes. The dreams where voices whisper in tongues you do not understand. The visions of faces you buried, comrades long dead, crawling from the mud, their mouths filled with ash, their eyes hollow. This is not imagination. It is intrusion. The warp presses against the Legion like a predator at the gate. It listens. It hungers. It drinks every scream, every curse, every hopeless prayer. And with each battle, with each world drowned in blood, the beacon grows brighter. For the Penal Legion is not only cannon fodder, it is bait. Bait for the horrors beyond reality. The overseers do not speak of it. The priests will never admit it. But deep inside, every legionnaire knows. When you march forward, when your collars click, when the blood runs into the dirt, something on the other side of the veil is watching. Sometimes it whispers, "You are mine." Sometimes it laughs. Not the laughter of men, but of things older than men, deeper than gods. And sometimes it reaches through. There was a world once, its name forgotten, its surface nothing but mud and fire. The Legion was cast into the trenches, their collars flashing, their overseers shouting. The enemy was not human. It was not even flesh. The shadows themselves moved. The air tasted of iron. And when the legionnaires fell, they did not die. Their bodies crumpled, yes. Their blood spilled, but their screams continued, echoing long after their throats had been cut, because the warp had claimed them. The survivors swore they saw it. Shadows dragging bodies into the dark. Mouths opening where there should be no mouths. 1,000 hands of smoke reaching through the air to snatch the souls of the fallen before they could escape. This is the fifth truth of the Penal Legion. Even death cannot shield you from the warp. You are chained in life by collars of iron. You are chained in death by hungers unseen. And the warp is merciless. It takes the Legion's despair and reshapes it. The faces of the dead return in dreams, their collars still glowing, their heads still half broken. Voices whisper, "Why did you live? Why not me?" You feel their hands on your throat when you sleep. You wake to the sound of your own sobs. Some legionnaires break. They beg the overseers to detonate their collars before the warp claims them. Others throw themselves into enemy fire, hoping for instant erasure. A few carve their own throats, desperate for silence. But silence never comes, because the warp does not release what it takes. And so, the Penal Legion becomes more than soldiers. It becomes a reservoir of agony. Each death, each betrayal, each moment of despair, feeding the Imperium, swelling its storms, fattening its gods. Think on that. The collar is not the cruelest chain. The overseer is not the cruelest master. The Emperor's silence is not the cruelest betrayal. The cruelest truth is this. The Penal Legion fights not for the Imperium, not even for survival. The Penal Legion fights for the warp, and the warp always wins. But worse still, there is a fate more horrifying, a revelation the overseers dare not whisper, the priests dare not pray, and the generals dare not admit. It is the fate that awaits those legionnaires who survive too long, and that fate is still to come. There is a saying whispered among the legionnaires, not shouted, not sung, only whispered. It goes like this: better to die early than to be remembered. For those who endure too long, for those who crawl through battlefield after battlefield and still live, their punishment does not end. It deepens. The Imperium has no place for survivors. At first, the survivors think themselves lucky. They walk away from battlefields piled high with corpses, their collars still blinking, their breaths still shallow. They carry scars. They carry memories, but they live. But in the Imperium, survival is not mercy. It is suspicion. The overseers mark them. Why has this one lived when so many have fallen? Why does his collar still blink while others have burst? In their eyes, survival is guilt. So the survivors are taken, not freed, not rewarded. Taken. They are gathered in camps, separated from the rest, marched away under watchful guns. There are whispers that some are dissected, their flesh studied by the Mechanicus, their endurance catalogued like specimens. Others are shipped to worlds whose names are erased from records, black sites of the Inquisition. But worse are those who are reshaped. The Imperium has a need, you see, a need for tools that neither cry nor break. Tools that do not question. Tools that survive. And the Penal Legion survivors are raw material. The Mechanicus strips them down. Flesh peeled, bones cut, memories harvested. Their collars are not removed, they are fused. The blinking red lights sink deeper into their skulls, wired into their veins, threaded through their hearts. They do not detonate anymore. They control. The soldiers become servitors, not the labor kind, not the menial drudges pushing carts and polishing steel. No, these are the war servitors, heavy, armored, silent, their weapons grafted into their arms, their eyes replaced with lenses that see only what their masters command. And yet, inside the husk, something remains. They say the survivors scream still, trapped in the machines of war. They cannot move their mouths, but their minds claw at the silence, begging for release. They remember the mud, the collars, the blood. They remember what they were, and that memory festers, burning like a coal in the dark. But the Imperium does not care. To the Imperium, they are assets. To the overseers, they are trophies. Proof that obedience does not end with death. Proof that the chain can bind even eternity. This is the final fate of many who survive too long. Their punishment is not escape, it is permanence. They become eternal soldiers, chained forever, their humanity carved away piece by piece until nothing remains but obedience. And for the few who escape even that, who avoid servitorhood, there is another fate still worse, the Inquisition. Some survivors are deemed tainted, not because of chaos, not because of heresy, but because survival itself is heresy. To live when others have not, to carry the Legion's despair without collapsing, it invites suspicion. Surely, they whisper, this one has bargained with the warp. Surely, this one has been touched by something forbidden. So they are dragged away, questioned, broken, drowned in interrogation cells where silence is more terrifying than screams. And what happens after? No one knows. The survivors never return. Their names are erased. Their faces vanish. It is as though they never existed at all. This is the final horror of the Penal Legion. Not only are you denied honor, not only are you denied life, not only are you denied death, you are denied even the dignity of being forgotten. Because to be forgotten is mercy, and the Imperium offers no mercy.
And so the Penal Legion stands as the Imperium's most perfect cruelty. It is not only the mud, it is not only the collars, it is not only the endless slaughter, it is the cycle. A cycle that begins with despair and ends with erasure. You are taken from the gutter, from the prison, from the cell where you thought your punishment had already been paid. You are thrown into the Legion, told that redemption lies in blood. But blood is never enough. You fight, and you bleed, and you die. Or worse, you live. And every path leads deeper into chains. The fresh conscript knows only fear. The battle-scarred survivor knows only suspicion. The warped veteran knows only transformation. And beyond that, the silence of the warp, where even memory is devoured. This is the design of the Imperium. Not to redeem, not to forgive, but to consume. It consumes your body in the trenches. It consumes your mind in the endless war. It consumes your soul in the warp's hunger. And when nothing remains, when every part of you has been stripped away, it consumes your name. The Penal Legion is proof of what the Imperium truly is. Not a savior, not a shepherd, a machine. A machine that grinds its people into dust and then grinds the dust again until even the memory of humanity is gone. And yet, still, there is no rebellion, no uprising, because rebellion requires hope, and the Legion knows no hope. The Callers do not allow it. The Overseers crush it. The priests poison it. What remains is silence. A silence broken only by the bark of commands, the rattle of chains, and the endless scream of war. Some whisper prayers. Some curse the Emperor's name. Some embrace the madness of chaos, though it offers no true freedom. But most simply march, because marching is all they know. The Penal Legion is not an army. It is not a punishment. It is not even a death sentence. It is the truth of the Imperium, stripped bare. It is the mask torn away. It is the whisper in the dark that every citizen already knows but dares not speak. You do not live in the Imperium. You are consumed by it. And when your time comes, whether in chains or in silence, there will be no grave, no song, no name, only ash, only the faint memory of a Caller's red light, blinking one last time in the dark, only the echo of a truth that none dare admit. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no mercy.